I can tell you with certainty that the world is not paying enough attention to the growing humanitarian disaster in Nigeria. Despite its strategic importance as Africa's most populous country, these warning lights are flashing because of this systematic religious persecution driven primarily by Islamists, and it's going unaddressed. Christians are the primary targets. They're murdered, kidnapped, raped, and terrorized on almost a daily basis, as has already been discussed. The numbers are staggering. The brutality is unspeakable, and the silence from global leaders is deafening. The U.S. government must act, and they must act now. Nigeria must be redesignated a country of particular concern. The Biden administration's removal of this designation was a reckless mistake that emboldened the very terrorists who are slaughtering Christians. The U.S. should apply targeted sanctions against Nigerian officials who are complicit in religious persecution, as well as...
Hello and what's up, guys? In this video, we are diving straight into a major international development. The U.S. Congress is pushing Donald Trump to sanction Nigeria over the rising unaliving of Christians by Fulani Jihadists. The pressure is mounting, and this could have serious consequences for Nigeria's government. During a recent congressional hearing, U.S. lawmakers raised alarm over the relentless attacks by Islamist extremists, which have left thousands dead and forced millions into refugee camps. The violence is out of control, and now the U.S. is taking notice. Republican Congressman Chris Smith didn't hold back. He slammed Joe Biden's administration for removing Nigeria from the list of countries of particular concern, even though the situation has only worsened. According to Smith, over 52,000 Christians have been murdered and millions are now displaced. Genocide Watch has even called Nigeria a killing field of defenseless Christians. The hearing featured powerful testimonies from religious leaders. Bishop Anagbe accused the Nigerian government of turning a blind eye, allowing Fulani militants to kidnap, kill, and take over Christian lands. Meanwhile, Tony Perkins from the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom called out Western media for ignoring the crisis. Now, with Trump expected to reinstate Nigeria's CPC designation and impose sanctions, all eyes are on Washington. Will this finally force action? Guys, I'll let you watch this video for yourself so you can see exactly what I am talking about. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Take a look, guys, and remember to share your thoughts after watching.
I am Bishop Anagbe, that appear here as the bishop, the Catholic Bishop of Makurdi Diocese, the capital of Benue State in Nigeria. I am the shepherd of one of the 4 dioceses, Catholic dioceses in Benue. We have others, Anglican, Methodist, and Pentecostals, which central them. Benue State has a population of about 6.1 million people, 2 million of whom are those under my care as the bishop of the diocese. Benue State is about 98% Christian, with very few Muslims living in towns. Nigeria and eventually my diocese and the state of Benue have become in recent years one of the most dangerous and insecure places for Christians. Christians and Muslims are nearly evenly divided among Nigeria's large population of over 200 million persons. Islamist extremists are fiercely contesting the possession, control, and governing law of the land, especially in the country's northern and central regions, the latter of which is where Benue is located. There are constant ethnic, political, and religious conflicts over land and allegiance. Constitutionally, we are a secularist country, but our unity has been fragile. Political and religious actions and even public speech have been carefully managed to avoid accusations of religious bias and political tensions. Today, the clear influence of Islamist extremists has changed the traditional social dynamics of tribe, ethnicity, religion, and the social status in Nigeria. Because just recently, at the beginning of the Ramadan fast, 12 states in northern Nigeria have declared closed schools so that they attend to this. And you can imagine which other country in the world does that. Saudi Arabia is not doing it. Afghanistan is not doing it. Baghdad is not doing it. But then Nigeria is practicing. What kind of Islam are they practicing? 12 states, and not only Muslims are living in these places. What happens with the educational program or curriculum of the country? But this is what we are going through every day in Nigeria. A long-term Islamic agenda to homogenize the population has been implemented over several presidencies through a strategy to reduce and eventually eliminate the Christian identity of half of the population. This strategy includes both violent and non-violent actions, such as the exclusion of Christians from positions of power and adoption of such church members, the raping of women, the killing and expulsion of Christians, the destruction of churches and farmlands of Christian farmers, followed by the occupation of such lands by the Fulani herders, and also changing the names of these villages. They are taking over the places, so you clearly see an expansionist approach and Islamic, and then they are making the people now flee and leave their villages, and they conquer it. The quest to Islamalize the land appears high on the agenda of some of the powerful and influential Muslims in Nigeria. There is a campaign to take land to spread Islam, and there is the hemorrhaging of Christian farmers from the central region of Nigeria and Benue State, Makurdi Diocese in particular, as they are forced to abandon fertile lands that used to feed the nation, which classify Benue as the food basket of the nation. Militant Fulani herdsmen are terrorists destroying society. They steal and vandalize, they kill and boast about it. They kidnap and rape, and they enjoy total impunity from the elected authorities. None of them have been arrested and brought to justice. This is supported by the corrupt system in which we operate and the abject poverty among us, which allow the criminals to easily attract more recruits and prey on more victims. Why is this happening? Is it really a religious war? Like in the past, many jihadists are motivated less by religion than by spoils of war and use their religion to impose themselves. In my diocese, the spoils consist mainly of fertile, well-tended land organized around my parishes or so. The jihadists come and adopt and kill the priests, leaving thousands without support and basic human services. And of course, when they disperse the people, the inhabitants, or the citizens, or the people of the lands, they take over. And any attempt to go back and take care of your farms, surely you get killed. The Makurdi Diocese in Benue State has been the epicenter of the invasion by these herders, who are more like hired guns of cattle oligarchies, who manipulate religion to rally the herders to eliminate the Christian population and cleanse the land in the name of Islam. This objective is behind the relentless attacks against Benue's villages. When we call for help to the police and the army, they do not come. At the end of 2024, several villages were warned by the attackers of the upcoming violence, and the leaders called the police for defense ahead of time. But they did not come, and the Christian massacres, almost customary, took place, killing hundreds in Plateau and Benue, with the worst massacre claiming 47 people. The militant also burned down the 8 Catholic churches of St. Mary's Parish in the Diocese of Boko, which in Benue State, as well as the parish house, clinics, schools, and other houses. The militant Fulani herdsmen bear on defenseless villagers without consequences. They follow orders to conquer, kill, and occupy. They attack even those who have managed to escape into our IDP camps. Thereby, they have no place to run to. And it is unfortunate that the police system in Nigeria, orders have to come from above, and such that once there's a call, and they say they have never received. And by the time they arrive, these people have left, and the people are now living in the pool of their blood. What I have recounted above is happening not only in Benue State. I believe our experience in Benue is symptomatic of what is happening elsewhere in large parts of Nigeria. The experience of the Nigerian Christians today can be summed up as that of a church under Islamist extermination. It is frightening to live there. Apart from the violent campaigns and attacks against Christian villages, there are now attempts by the Islamic Council of Nigeria and various Islamic groups to impose Sharia law on the Christian populations. Already, 12 states in the north of Nigeria are under this sectarian religious law, and attempts to extend the same to the south of Nigeria, which they have started. This month, governors in the north decided appropriately to close all schools and education institutions during the months of Ramadan. leaving millions of students without learning opportunity for 5 weeks. We live in fear because at any point it can be our turn to be killed, but to remain silent is to die twice. So, I have chosen to speak. I speak on behalf of the millions who are in the camps. In Benue State, in Makurdi Diocese alone, in my diocese, I have about 9 camps. 9. On the 5th of March, which was Ash Wednesday, we visited one of the camps, and many of my priests and religious went to the other camps, distributed them to begin the Ash Wednesday with our faithful who are there, because we are the voice of the voiceless. We have to talk for the defenseless. We have to talk about the weak and those who cannot talk about themselves. In one of the camps called the Mega Camp, there were over 3,000 inmates of that camp, and which was a record given to us by government. I speak on behalf of them and those children who have no husband, who have no father, and even their own voices taken away by the politicians who promised to help them but have become the willing tools of the jihadists because they are talking politically correct statements, looking for next elections to come. I speak on behalf of those whose loved ones have been killed, but no one has even offered a word of consolation to them. I speak on behalf of the thousands of young girls who have been adopted and raped because no one, not even the media, mentions them anymore. Foremost, I speak on behalf of my flock who are unable to worship freely and unable to return to their ancestral farms and homes because that land has been ruthlessly taken from them by the armed herdsmen. And where they say they want to live in peace with the natives, if you must farm, you have to pay tax to hire the land which belongs to you. That is slavery, to say the least about it. As prosperous Nigeria is in African continent, and I tell you, if there's outbreak of war in Nigeria, no country around us, Chad, Niger, Ghana, Guinea, Togo, no country can contain the population that will flee to these places. No country can be able to house over 5 million refugees. It's not possible because of that. And if 1 million refugees run to Chad and Niger, they'll collapse that country because there'll be no plan to take care of them. So we have to be very careful. Today, I urge you all to use every means within your mandate to start developing a strong and good relationship with Nigeria, where you know that when you speak of human dignity, you are also speaking of the same God-given right you believe is unalienable. Consider that Nigeria can be your ally, but it cannot be one where half the population is in the process of being murderously eliminated. Work with us, the churches, and other Nigerians of goodwill. We are working for a peaceful and prosperous society, and our desperate plight has been set aside U.S. policy for too long, to the cost of thousands of lives. Concretely, I request and I plead, I ask you to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. This has both a practical and diplomatic meaning to signal that you are paying attention to what happens to us and elsewhere in the world. Because the policies the government is trying to put in place, so that to return the IDPs, build camps for them, relocate them from their homes, it is not durable and it will not work, because the government has already the population that is not able to take care of, and then you have over millions of people in the camps and you want to relocate them to where? And if you do, let's take that you do, how many houses or rooms will you give me who has 5 children, another one has 3, another one has 2, and what will I be doing for a living? These people previously never begged anybody for food. They were managing their lives, training their children, and building their homes. So nobody should have deceived us on the guys that you're going to resettle to the IDPs. They have no jobs. So where you say them, what will be their place? And by the way, the fundamental question remains, if you resettle them to other camps or build places for them, what happens to the ancestral lands? Who takes care of them? And this is whereby I feel the government is complacent on this issue. Because these terrorists, Fulanis, displace and kill people and then occupy the place and then change names, nomenclatures of these towns. For what reason? So we want to let the people go back to their homes. and help for them to rebuild their lives. I implore this august body to insist on the return and rehabilitation of all the IDPs to their ancestral lands and not to relocate them to other constructed camps elsewhere, which is an invented solution now being pushed in the Benue State government. And I tell you, Nigeria government can do that once they have to be accountable. Because I know Nigeria, under the auspices of ECOMOG, was able to reinstate constitutional government in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and they can do that now. We have the capacity, but because the leaders that are not prepared. And I think that's whereby look, it's not just conspiracy of silence, it is aiding, abetting, and supporting these terrorists to keep doing their work. This is my plea. Thank you very much for this attention.
I can tell you with certainty that the world is not paying enough attention to the growing humanitarian disaster in Nigeria. Despite its strategic importance as Africa's most populous country, these warning lights are flashing because of this systematic religious persecution driven primarily by Islamists, and it's going unaddressed. Christians are the primary targets. They're murdered, kidnapped, raped, and terrorized on almost a daily basis, as has already been discussed. The numbers are staggering, the brutality is unspeakable, and the silence from global leaders is deafening. The U.S. government must act, and they must act now. Nigeria must be redesignated a country of particular concern. Biden administration's removal of this designation was a reckless mistake that emboldened the very terrorists who are slaughtering Christians. The U.S. should apply targeted sanctions against Nigerian officials who are complicit in religious persecution, as well as suspend certain trade benefits until concrete actions are taken to protect all Nigerians.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, is set to unleash a race of sanctions over Nigeria, for the wanton killings of Christians, which has been going on in Nigeria for many years. This latest development is coming forth after the United States of American Congress clears the pathway, giving an approval to Donald Trump to release, or rather unleash, these sanctions to Nigeria, as it has been a public information that Nigeria accounts for 90% of Christians that are killed worldwide annually. It is very sad. Many of you can still recall the video I made sometime this year, precisely in January, where I got into the church and the priest during the sermon started lamenting, talking about the wanton killing of Christians that is going on in Nigeria. Now let's get a little bit into details. But before then, my shout out to Catholic News Agency of Nigeria, shout out to African Observatory for Religious Freedom, shout out to Archbishop Ignatius Kaigema, shout out to Archbishop Wilfred Anagbe, shout out to Bishop Onaikon, and shout out to Bishop Mamza. These men and many other voices have been speaking for many years in Nigeria, calling not only the Nigerian government but international organizations, national and international government, to come to the aids of Christians in Nigeria. Now, the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee Chairman for Africa, Chris Smith, in testament with Bishop Wilfred Anagbe, gave a compelling remark with verifiable information during that presentation. In clarity, it has been maintained that over 55,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria from 2019 down to 2023, and over 21,000 Christians have been abducted in Nigeria. Similarly, over 34,000 Muslim believers have equally been killed by Boko Haram insurgency as well as Fulani herdsmen terrorist group. It was maintained that Fulani herdsmen are terrorist group or terrorist organization. In that presentation, they explained in clarity with verifiable information many of the inhuman and brutal killings of many Christians across the width and breadth of Nigeria, including the ones that have taken place in recent time. Many Nigerians may not even recall that a reverend father was abducted on the night of the Ash Wednesday, where Christian faithfuls were celebrating, marking the beginning of the Lenten period. This reverend father was abducted by the Fulani herdsmen and consequently was gruesomely murdered. It has become a culture in Nigeria that life must go on because many Nigerians feel helpless, such that in any condition, life must go on. People pretend and move on with their life as if nothing has happened. That has become a norm. However, Bishop Wilfred explained during that remark that in cases where Muslim faithfuls were killed by both these Fulani herdsmen and Boko Haram insurgency, that they have reached out to their communities, to share their condolences with them. But it has become a norm that each time any of these imams, the religious scholars, speaks out against the wanton killing, either for Christians or for Muslims, that this same Fulani herdsmen as well as the Boko Haram comes back in retaliation to destroy them further. This could explain possibly why many of them are not speaking out again. Therefore, after all of this, the Congress went further to clear the pathway for Donald Trump to release and unleash this sanction on Nigeria, of which Nigeria will be taking up a new designation called a country of particular concern, CPC. It is upon this status that Donald Trump will go further to unleash this sanction on Nigeria. Now the bigger question, who are the people that are going to be the beneficiaries of this sanction? Well, only time will tell. I will be ending this section by bringing to your knowledge once again the story of Habila Adamu, one of the Christian survivors from the northern part of Nigeria, who was surrounded by the Boko Haram members alongside with his wife, and they told him, denounce your faith in Christ and you shall be set free. Do you want to die as a Christian? Habila Adamu insisted that he was ready to die for Christ Jesus. They asked him 2 times. The wife was begging them, crying mercilessly, begging them to spare the life of the husband. At the second count, when they asked him, Habila Adamu insisted that he was ready to be a Christian in life and in death. Immediately, with AK-47 rifle, they pulled the trigger on this young man through his face. But miraculously, God preserved the life of Habila Adamu. He was invited to Washington to share his story and the testimony of what happened. His story was published on the Voice of Matters and in many different international, media handles. I am pretty sure many Nigerians may have forgotten this story. If you do not believe in testimony, if you do not believe in miracle, the story of Habila Adamu is one that will continue to remind you that God continues to work miracle and wonders. His story was equally echoed and x-rayed by Chris Smith alongside and with Bishop Wilfred Anagbe during that remark at the House of Congress. At this point, I sincerely hope that Christians in Nigeria will breathe, as well as other religious organizations. Live and let live. At this point, I will allow you to be the judge. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comment section and share this video. Man, another person see him. God bless you.